Really start breastfeeding, especially for the first 1 hour, and you continue exclusively for 6 months, you continue for 2 years and even beyond, you have done.
The Ministry of Health and Sanitation has on Wednesday, 4th August, celebrated International World Breastfeeding Week. Theme: Protect Breastfeeding, a Shared Responsibility. According to the Deputy Medical Chief Officer, Dr. Sartie M. Kenneh, the World Breastfeeding Week is a global event, and it aims to highlight the huge benefit that breastfeeding brings to both the health and welfare of babies, as well as maternal health, focusing on good nutrition, poverty reduction, and food security. Speaking on the importance of Breastfeeding Week, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer of the Ministry of Health and Sanitation, Dr. Sartie M. Kenneh, also said the week is set aside to raise awareness among mothers, especially for those who fail to breastfeed their babies from 0 to 6 months. He noted that mothers are bound to breastfeed their infant, adding that breastfeeding can save a child from so many illnesses.
Really start breastfeeding, especially for the first 1 hour, and you continue exclusively for 6 months, you continue for 2 years and even beyond, you have done a great work for your child in actually combating a lot of these childhood illnesses, obesity, and you are actually improving on the immunity of the child. We all know over the years what breastfeeding do, increasing the immunity of the child, because the breast milk in the initial stage is actually like a vaccine. The first vaccine to the baby. Yeah, it also helps to clear the bowels. We all know this, so it is very, very important how it actually boosts the immunity of the child, how it actually prevents the child from diarrhea, and the overall.
In her statement, the UNICEF representative Ellen Idigatran commended the government for the legislation of the Breast Milk Substitute Act 2021, adding that it demonstrates the commitment in protecting and promoting optimal breastfeeding practices in Sierra Leone.
And the ministry's briefing on the historical legislation of the Breast Milk Substitutes Act of 2021. These 3 milestones demonstrate commitment in protecting and promoting optimal breastfeeding practices in Sierra Leone. Every child has the right to life, right to adequate food, and right to the highest attainable standard of health, of which breastfeeding is an integral component in the realization of these rights.
She also stated that it is always important to involve fathers in protecting and promoting breastfeeding.
It is also important to involve fathers. For example, during a focus group discussion held in Maso community in Port Loco, one of the fathers interviewed said that when he visited the hospital with his wife during antenatal care, the doctor told him that colostrum is good for the child and to avoid discarding colostrum. He then supported his wife in the following of the doctor's advice, and when their baby was born, his wife fed the baby with colostrum, and he noticed that this baby was not sickly compared to his older children who were not fed exclusively with colostrum. This is just one example of how important breastfeeding is. As an essential component of child rights, breastfeeding needs to be respected and fulfilled. Governments should do their utmost to ensure the survival and healthy development of children through the adoption and strong enforcement of legislation to protect and promote breastfeeding and regulate the marketing of breast milk substitutes. The government of Sierra Leone is therefore congratulated on.
She said every child has right to life, right to adequate food, right to the highest attainable standard of health, of which breastfeeding is an integral component in the realization of these rights.
Practices in Sierra Leone. Every child has the right to life, right to adequate food, and right to the highest attainable standard of health, of which breastfeeding is an integral component in the realization of these rights.
MOHAMED Bijalo, the Chief Executive Officer, Focus 1000, also congratulated the Ministry of Health for championing the Breast Milk Substitute Act 2021, noting that since it has now enacted by Parliament, it will promote a culture of breastfeeding in the country. According to him, they have been in the process of enacting the breast milk substitute for almost 10 years, but with such laws, the act of breastfeeding will now actualize.
Something on this very important day, and I really want to join these previous speakers to congratulate the Ministry of Health for championing the bill, which is now an act that will really promote, breastfeeding in this country. We've been on that battle for almost 10 years. So I think it's a major achievement for us, and we are very grateful. We want to thank openly our Director of Nutrition and our colleagues in the Ministry of Health, Government, Parliament, and the UN agencies and civil society for piloting that one. I had some people making joke over it. They say, Parliament said now they pass a bill now for Bobby business. Yeah, but that is, having traction, because breastfeeding, breast milk is so delicate. It has to be promoted, it has to be protected. And that is why it's a shared responsibility. I'm so happy that we see so many men around, and when we are talking about breastfeeding, now people say, Pajalo a bit of bad one, but I think that is the shared responsibility. We want the men to come on board, because it is not easy for that woman to breastfeed starting from the first 1 hour and to continue exclusively for 6 months, and then to continue with complementary feeding for 2 years. It is definitely not easy. That woman needs a lot of support, starting from the husband.
For Beyond Borders Network Television, I am MOHAMED AMARA GANDO reporting.